Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Alestral's Clash video for you. Gonna be testing out some Bunnyx slash Nyximera deck here because those cards are available in Clash. Not quite every Firestorm card is, so there are some cards that aren't in here that I would like to add, namely like Galaxy Champion of Poseidon. I would not mind testing out the Werepups with the new Like a Void as well, but definitely still looking at a pretty solid core here. So I'm going to show the list off at the end, but Bunnyx Nyximera is an archetype I'm pretty interested in. I think it's really cool. The idea is that you have this Bunnyx here, this one Spirit Frost 4/4 that searches the two ascended forms, the Risen and the Fallen form. You add one to hand, the other goes to the yard. Then the idea is that on the next turn you ascend into one, and during each end phase they kind of tag out into the other by special ascending. It's a very, very cool strategy. I think it's very unique, and both forms kind of have like different effects that are better, whether it's your turn or your opponent's. Basically, you want the Risen form on your turn because it can expend a solar to destroy a face-down rune, and you want the Fallen form on your opponent's turn because it cannot be targeted by invoke runes. So again, sort of the pros and cons going on with each of those cards there. Now, I think that this deck probably won't be tier 1 in the paper Firestorm meta, or likely Clash as well, but I think it has a lot of interesting potential. Just because, again, it's very unique mechanically. Not only that, but it's also, you know, you're snowballing a bigger and bigger and bigger Alestral that can even destroy face-down runes, which are going to be one of the main ways your opponent gets rid of it. The other main ways they would go to get rid of it, which are stuff like Earthquake, Resting on Your Laurels, again, cannot be targeted thanks to the Fallen Forms effect. That said, the weakness of this strategy, I would definitely say, is that if you do get your Nyximera outed, then that can be a bit of an issue because you do kind of go all in on this strategy a little bit. Yeah, so here I was kind of thinking about Gorgon's Gazing, but then I realized, oh, Poison Tipped Arrow will actually reduce the Eddy down to 3 attack, meaning you cannot battle over the Bunnyx, and I can just out it with the Poison Tipped Arrow, and then swing in for 2 with the Risen form on the next turn. Opponent's going to set a face-down card that likely won't matter because we can destroy it with the Risen form. If it's PTA, that'll be a little bit of an issue. If it's Gorgon's Gaze, that'll be annoying, but ultimately fine because either way we're going to deal 2 spirits of damage, whether it's by attacking or them paying 2 for Gorgons. Yeah, so they played Atlantis as well. They're notably a very water-based deck, but yep, we're just going to send into the Risen form using a solar, so that way, of course, we can get the effect. The nice thing about ascending, you know, turn after turn is that you can keep stacking on the spirits of different types as well. So, like on the next turn, as I go into, you know, Fallen form, obviously I'd want to attach a Lunar, so the Fallen form effect is active. But then after that, I can start attaching stuff like water to play around Tsunami. So, that'll be nice. And here my opponent's just going to go ahead and concede, but going into our next game is actually going to be the same person. So, it'll be another water deck that we're going to be up against. It was like literally right afterwards, so, you know, pretty reasonably assume they're on the same deck. Not going to mulligan this time around, looks like my opponent is, though. Yeah, this opening hand is definitely fine, because we can simply use an harpoon to search for the Bunnyx before going into that line. Now here I opened Tsunami and Hurricane. So what I decided to do here was set the Tsunami, even though I'm fairly certain they are on a water deck, because again, we saw Atlantis in the last game. But if they happen to play something that's not water, and the Tsunami can counter it, great. But even if not, setting a face-down rune is a great way to lull your opponent into a false sense of security, so that way you can blast them with the Hurricane. Something I've done a couple of times, not just in Alestrals, but in Yu-Gi-Oh! With Heavy Storm in the past, is you set the Hurricane face down, right? Which again kind of lulls your opponent into thinking, okay, they're probably not going to Hurricane because they have committed a face down. So then they'll set a couple of face downs, and then on your next turn you just flip up your face down Hurricane. Yeah, so here they're going to play an Eddy, a water, Alestral as expected. So, yeah, I don't mind giving up the Tsunami here because I do not expect it to get a lot of mileage in this matchup at all. Eddy's going to switch then Harpoon to defense. And sure enough, my opponent is going to end up setting 2. before going to battle and then swinging Eddie over an Harpoon. This is a completely fine exchange for me here because the Harpoon's already done its job by searching up the Bunnix, and we have a Cryoblast in hand, so we can just use that to take care of the Eddie. But we're definitely going to want to fire off this Hurricane first. And there's not really much of anything they could reasonably respond with here. I mean, there are responses in the game, but, you know, yeah, they had Gorgon's Gaze and Tsunami. Pretty much all the background Alestrals right now is, like, that's commonly played, that is like, dedicated Alestral removal. There is a counter rune that can negate invokes, but that is definitely more of a sideboard card. Yeah, so Cryoblast, we're going to use that to get rid of the Eddie here. We didn't technically have to do that. Like, if we put Bunnix in defense mode, then Eddie wouldn't really be able to do anything, but I want to get in a point of damage here for sure. And I don't want my opponent to, like, snowball the board at all. Especially because Water does have a lot of really good 2-drops, so giving my opponent any chance to ascend here would be very not good for me. But yeah, we're expending the Frost with the Bunnix, and now we can send the Fallen form to the Underworld and add the Risen form to hand. I think I mentioned this before, but that's definitely the order you want to do it in, because you want to play the Risen form on your... Risen form is good on your turn, Fallen form is good on the opponent's turn. So you want to add Risen form to hand, Fallen form in the Underworld. That way on your next turn you ascend into the Risen form, and you can right away start spending Solar to destroy face-down runes. I'm feeling pretty good pairing the Bunnix with the Gorgon's Gaze here. Gorgon's Gaze will protect Bunnix not only from Alestral attacks, but also Alestral effects as well. And of course it is also just good if they have an effect I just want to negate in general, like the Sass Rabbit. Doesn't threaten the Bunnix, but I will definitely still use the Gorgon's Gaze. I think it is absolutely worth spending 2 spirits here to stop them from getting the draw, search, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a combination of both. Oh, but I had to play it on a later chain link because it's not technically on the field. We'll wait for the Astrabbit to activate its ability, and then, yeah, we can Gorgon's Gaze it. Yeah, the Astrabbit being the Pot of Duality type effect is just... That's so much better than a draw. Even if it was just draw 1 card, I think I'd probably still use a Gorgon's Gaze here, but yeah. Do not need my opponent looking for an out to my upcoming Risen form, especially because if you look at our hand here, we're kind of all in on the Nyximera stuff with this particular hand. I mean, I guess we do have the Eddie. Like, in theory, instead of ascending, we could go into Eddie, switch Astrabbit to attack mode, and then swing. And that might honestly have just been the better choice here. But, you know, it's a Nyximera deck. I can't not just start ascending, right? Plus, there is the matter of the face down, which, again, hopefully it's not something like Gorgons or PTA. And we can just take care of it here. Yeah, sure enough, they don't end up chaining anything. And I end up looking and it's actually a Rise from the Depths. You can see it on the bottom right there. So, opponent set a bluff to draw out the Nyximera effect, which I think that was a pretty good move on their part. The Rise from the Depths doesn't look like it's going to get much use in this game for them because they don't have Atlantis up. And, you know, basically just kind of says... force your opponent to expend 1 for free, which is a pretty good use for a card. So, yeah, this is me trying to figure out how to trigger the the mandatory trigger of Nyximera, but it's actually over there on the left side. I always forget that the little tab is over there. You can trigger PTA from that tab as well, but they also, as you saw earlier, have updated the clients that you can trigger PTA, you know, even aside from that tab over there. Yeah, sometimes finding stuff between hand deck and graveyard is a little bit annoying because it always defaults to your hand first. You may be confused and be like, wait, where's my Nyximera? But it's got to scroll to the bottom there to go to the graveyard. So going into Fallen form on the opponent's turn. And one thing to remember about the Nyximera is, of course, as you're special ascending during each end phase, it's getting more and more and more spirits, right? So right now my Nyximera actually has 3 spirits on it: Frost, Solar, and Lunar. Definitely going to PTA this Foamy, not because it's a threat with its stats or anything, but of course when it's destroyed by battle, it can summon any 1 Water Spirit Alestral from the deck, and I definitely don't want that happening, so I'm very okay spending the PTA, although you'll notice that I am running out of spirits rather quickly, not only due to the effects I'm activating, but also, of course, the Nyximera is going to add another spirit during each end phase, and it's a mandatory trigger, as you can see, and the option is either to keep ascending or send it to the underworld, and, well, you know, at this point, I've got so many spirits on it that I really can't afford to do that. So this, as I kind of mentioned before, is sort of the drawback of Nyximera. It's why I'm playing 3 Calfmel in this deck as well, to try to recover those lunar and solar spirits. But I don't know, I might need a little bit more than that. Maybe Cataract to get back Frost. I don't even play that enough Frost to warrant that. I think the Calfmel is likely just completely fine, but we just haven't drawn it this game more than anything else. Even though I am low on spirits, I am still going to spend a solar on this face down. I really cannot afford to have my Nyximera bounced by like a Shield of Achilles, right? So yeah, I think it's worth it here. They're thinking about this face down. My opponent is opting not to use it. I think it was a Gorgon's Gaze? Yeah, you can see at the bottom there, it's a Gorgon's Gaze. I think they meant to use it there, though, because obviously my Nyximera swinging in for, I think, 6 here is worth them spending 2 on the Gorgons. Something tells me that they were having a little bit of trouble with the UI, if I had to guess, but yeah, so 14-3 in my opponent's favor is quite the huge spirit differential, but, you know, as we're swinging in here, again, this Nyximera, I think it's actually swinging for 5, not 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, it's only 4, not even 5. Okay. But still getting in for a total of 5 thanks to having the Spectaris as well. That alone already puts us in a, you know, we're closing the gap very quickly, bringing them from 14 down to 9. And then on the next turn, we'll threaten to swing for a total of 7 with what we have on board. So, yeah, that really leaves my opponent with only 2 spirits to work with in the grand scheme of things, which is not favorable to them. So this is why I included a lot of stuff like Hurricane. I actually probably want to put in even a second Hurricane. Like Hurricane, a lot of the 1-for-1 removal, like counter runes that you were seeing, is because I think this is the kind of game state where Nyximera really is going to be favored, where it's a simplified game state where, you know, both you and your opponent have very few total resources, but if you have that Nyximera, you are able to just not only get in for a ton of spirits worth of damage, but also keep destroying face down runes every turn. Now here my opponent's going to use Eddie to switch my Nyximera Fallen form into attack mode. That is going to make it vulnerable to being destroyed by battle here. However, it is important to remember that even though the Eddie and the Nyximera Fallen form are both going to destroy each other with 4 attack, my opponent is still going to have to expend spirits equal to their difference, which obviously is going to be quite a bit. Now, it looks like my opponent had Ambrosia as one of their last 2 remaining cards as well. Not ideal for me, but I can still outpace them even with that Ambrosia in mind, right? Because, yeah, 10-2 looks pretty bad until they swing in with Eddie, and then now Nyximera had, what, 5 spirits? So they're going to have to expend 4 here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, so already the gap is starting to close once again, and we're up on cards both in hand and on board. Got the Spectaris here, Galaxy coming down. This would be Galaxy Champion of Poseidon if he was in the game, but until that comes in, I'm just using regular Galaxy. I actually have 2 of each Galaxy and Eddie, and I think I might take both of them out, put in 3 Champion of Poseidon Galaxy, and then just 1 other card, maybe like a other counter rune or something. It's definitely worth playing Galaxy here too, not only for getting in for even more damage. I think that alone is worth it. Like if I had top decked like some random counter rune, I would have just cast out the Eddie here, but Galaxy in particular is good too because my opponent's on a water deck. I can mess up with their stats potentially. Yeah, they're expending to draw, which is pretty expected, putting them down to 3, so I can threaten lethal next turn. They're going to set 1 face down before passing. Now, that face down could be a tsunami, but thankfully we peel Ambrosia off the top here, and we're able to spend our last Thunder Spirit. Gonna end up putting back definitely a water for Eddie, and I think I end up putting back a second water and a Thunder here for the Thunder for Astrab at top deck if necessary, and then the extra water just to, I guess, have. But I'm thinking about my opponent's face down being Tsunami, right? Even if that's the case, I can water enchant Eddy here, and if they flip Tsunami to spend 1, it will only turn the Specterus to defense mode. I can still swing in with the Galaxy and the Eddy, which will ultimately still put them down to 0 spirits. So yeah, even if it is Tsunami or Shield of Achilles, yeah, we're going to get the dub here. So, all right, GG's to my opponent on both games there. Here is going to be the list. It's going to be over there on the left, but I'll also show you the full card view as well. So, yeah, there we go. And then I'll start scrolling through them here. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more Alestrals content or Pokemon Pocket or just other random games / TCGs in general, definitely sub here. As the Clash updates come through with the ban list and more cards coming in, I'll definitely update the channel with more deck profiles and gameplay with Clash as well. I'm going to stream it over on the main channel, Hexlex, as well, so check it out there. But that's going to do it for now. Thanks so much for watching. This is Hexlex signing out, hoping that you have a fantastic day.